I was already a fan from during the impeachment hearings. We see him on TV all the time, of course, doing a great, great job. Representative Raja Krishnamoorthi. Wait, I get it wrong.
Krishnamurthy.
Wow. Good morning, Representative Krishnamoorthi. How are you?
Hey, how
There-
are you, Stephanie?
Got it that time.
Excellent. Good
Good-
job.
good.
When I first ran for office in Chicago, I've mentioned this before, but when I first ran, I said, "Hi, my name is Raja Krishnamoorthi," and the person looked right back at me from Chicago and said, "Roger Christian Murphy. Very nice to meet you."
You've been Chicagoized.
Exactly. And then I think they said, "I didn't know the Irish made it to India," so it was a very interesting conversation.
I thought you were going to say they said bless you, but okay. You're like, I didn't sneeze. Okay.
Right.
Congressman, where do we actually start this morning? Every level of this Russia story gets more disturbing, not even by the day, almost by the hour, right? I mean, first of all, they separate. We had Chairman Schiff on yesterday, right after they got out of that briefing. As he said, none of the right people were in there. It's all political appointees of the president,
Right.
not the actual intelligence people. Even the Republicans, they misrepresented the intelligence, right? That with this new reporting, obviously with the data on financial transfers, this was not disputed intelligence anymore, was it?
Well, as Chairman Schiff said, I think yesterday, I can't and we can't comment on the specific intelligence that we received. However, there's a lot of information now that would lead you to believe that the president should have been briefed. If he was briefed, why is he saying he wasn't? If he was not briefed, even if it wasn't orally briefed, why wasn't that the case? They know the guy doesn't read his presidential daily briefing. Why wouldn't they tell him what was in there?
Yeah.
And I think that the problem is that people don't want to tell him bad news about Russia, and they don't want to, upset him. And yet, in this situation, it's of paramount importance that our White House and our national security establishment do whatever it takes to protect our troops and to ward off the Russians.
Either way, Representative, he's a national security threat, in my opinion. What do you think?
He's not helping our national security, that's for sure. And I think that in this situation where, let's just fast forward to today, where he's still talking about, I wasn't briefed and they didn't tell me and it's all disputed. Why doesn't he say instead, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to warn the Russians that while we're investigating this, they better sure as not do this again if they did it before. And then we're going to protect our troops and we're going to protect our national security. These are the types of things that you'd want our president to say if he or she is trying to advance our national security interests.
Here's your colleague, Representative Steny Hoyer, yesterday after the briefing.
The president called this a hoax publicly. Nothing in the briefing that we have just received led me to believe it is a hoax. There may be different judgments as to the level of credibility, but there was no assertion that the information we had was a hoax.
Again, what strikes me is that they misrepresented, according to the latest reporting, Representative, even to Republicans that they briefed first. They tried to make this, present this as disputed intelligence, and then here we go. We get the reporting about the financial transfers, which, I would think legally would be considered hard evidence. But here's, again, Hoyer talking about the meeting real quick.
I thought this briefing was the White House personnel telling us their perspective. I think we knew the White House perspective. What we need to know is the intelligence perspective. So I am therefore urging the White House and the Chief of Staff to follow up on my request to make sure that we are briefed by the intelligence community directly so that we can get to the bottom of this.
Is that what's going to happen next, Representative, or where are we with this?
I hope so. I think Chairman Schiff has also asked for a briefing directly to our committee because we're the committee of jurisdiction. I know that the Speaker has asked for a briefing to all members of the House. And if we have to do it in a classified setting, that's fine. But I think that what Leader Hoyer has pointed out is that the White House and the administration wants to control the flow of information. They want to prevent career public servants in the intelligence community from coming and talking to us directly. Why? Because they often tend to tell the truth. And why is that a problem? Well, the truth is inconvenient to the president for many reasons on many occasions, and he doesn't like it. And we saw that with the impeachment hearings, but we also see it with a variety of other matters. And yet, Stephanie, you and I know that the job of the intelligence community is to tell the truth. By telling the truth and being full-throated about what is, real and perceived threats to American national security, we can actually deal with them and enhance our security in the process.
Yeah. And of course they're doing their usual play, attacking the press, right? Attacking.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I mean,
That's the second stanza.
Or like the problem is leaks or something. In my experience, you and Chairman Schiff are way too tight-lipped about classified information for my taste. So I don't know what they're worried about. But
you're exactly right about one thing, which is that the DNI yesterday and others were talking about, instead of the substance of the allegations and the substance of the threat to our American troops, the leaks. And yet the leaks oftentimes, they call whistleblower complaints leaks for gosh sakes. But, we need information from the intelligence community directly. And as you know, there are a lot of career public servants there. There are a lot of patriots there that want to do the right thing, and they want to get the information to us.
Right, and they are. And Representative, from Ukraine and the impeachment, like, oh, what are you going to do? Go to the IG of the whistleblower, which we saw how that went. With Ukraine and impeachment. So this Bernstein reporting you retweeted, from pandering to Putin to abusing allies, ignoring his own advisors, Trump phone calls alarm U.S. officials. And you said, as disturbing as this report is, in many ways it's unsurprising, which only makes it more disturbing. I mean, that's what I said. I was like, oh, this is just, we've heard this version in how many books? But, just that he is, as I said, Representative, the national security threat. He is, right, the danger. The clear and present danger to America.
To the extent that he's always trying to curry favor with Putin. To the extent that, we learned in these phone calls, maybe you already talked about this earlier, but he's had numerous phone calls with Vladimir Putin, and he's always kind of trying to, build him up and buy into whatever he says and, butter him up. That kind of stuff hurts our national security. It doesn't help it. And you really have to wonder, what type of damage he's doing to our national security, every day that he has these types of conversations.
Yeah. I mean, you focused in your tweets, Congressman, and thank you, because as a woman, I just, again, not surprising that he's just a vicious, horrible misogynist, but from this reporting, you retweeted but his most vicious attacks, say the sources were aimed at women head of states, described as near sadistic. Some of the things he said to Angela Merkel are just unbelievable. He called her stupid, accused her of being in the pocket of the Russians. Oh my God. Projection much? He's toughest in phone calls with those he looks at as weaklings and weakest with the ones he ought to be tough with. It's like you say, it's everything we know about him. But it's just, more and more reporting just makes it more and more disturbing, doesn't it?
That's right. And, I think that he was especially vile in his comments with Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And I think that type of conversation, pushing away our allies, undermining trust, drives them to do other things instead of working with us, instead of sharing intelligence with us, instead of trying to unify against common threats. We create a world where our allies start to wander and do things on their own, and we're just less secure. And our adversaries take comfort in that, and they make more and more aggressive moves toward us.
Well, did you think
that's very, very disturbing?
Yeah, Representative, do you think you and I, even as bad as this is, did you think you and I would be sitting here in 2020 talking about the fact that Americans have been banned from Europe? We have been banned because of the disastrous leadership on this pandemic. And you can look at any chart of every country in the world, Representative, and understand it completely.
That's right. I think Joe Biden was correct last night or the night before when he said that it appears that the president is almost surrendering to this virus. He called himself a wartime president during one of his earlier briefings, but he's done anything but declare and carry out a full-throated war on this virus.
Yeah.
And the incompetence matched by the delaying, deception, and denial has led us to a point where I think Dr. Fauci said yesterday that we may be up to 100,000 cases a day at some point soon. And, whole parts of the country are, kind of in a situation where they opened up the economy. Now they're having to slow down or close it up. And then the rest of us are at risk.
Yeah, and Representative,
it's not like we can erect barriers against them.
What makes me crazy is this is all so predictable, wasn't it? None of these states even reached the guidelines that the Trump administration laid out. None of them even hit those guidelines before reopening. And now is Fauci, and I forget who the other female doctor said, this is out of control now. We are officially we have lost control of this virus. And the disconnect has never been starker, has it? Where you've got Mike Pence saying this is cause for celebration. This is a great victory. And we literally, we can see it that in state after state, this is a wildfire now.
It is. And let me just point out two other things that are, I hope everybody kind of pays a little bit of attention to. One is antibody tests. I think the White House really is hoping that people are going to glom onto this notion that the presence of antibodies means you're immune and everybody's good. And they failed to completely regulate this market of antibody testing.
Yeah.
My committee that I chair pushed back hard. We got the FDA to regulate it, but we're concerned that their measures are too half-hearted. And so millions of Americans, Stephanie, are taking these faulty tests, thinking they're somehow immune through false positive results, and then going out and further spreading the disease. And the last point I would make is,
and also if you watch 60 Minutes, Representative, that was deliberate. They deliberately flooded the market with these antibodies. They are deliberately trying to suppress data and testing and make it confusing for people. And you're absolutely right. They're saying now with testing in China that people don't have antibodies for very long, even if they have them. So you're right. This is a novel coronavirus. We don't know a lot about it. So even if you had antibodies, that's not a guarantee you're not going to get it again.
The science is very unsettled here. And so, but that's not something you hear from the White House. That's not something you hear from the president. Instead, he talks about beautiful absolute immunity that could be conferred by these antibodies. And we're always concerned that people are going to make dangerous life decisions and rip off their masks and stop socially distancing and stop the good hygiene and risk themselves and everyone else. The last point I was just going to make, Stephanie, briefly was about the vaccine. As you know, the president has now announced Operation Warp Speed for the development of the vaccine.
Yeah, that's comforting coming from him.
Yeah, exactly. We are very disturbed by this concept of warp speed in developing the vaccine.
Thank you.
Because it looks like they might take some shortcuts to getting to a vaccine, which would ultimately be ineffective and unsafe. And then B, it has all kinds of political connotations that he wants to somehow announce a vaccine on the eve of the election. And
thank you.
And then we would be in a really bad situation.
Representative, we are the farthest. We are the farthest things from anti-vaxxers here, and we've had people on this show say, I'm not taking a vaccine while he's still president, because you're right, nobody trusts anything he says now, and that's an added danger, isn't it?
That's right, because there's already an anti-vaxxer movement where maybe 1/3 of the country, 25% to 1/3, will not take a vaccine regardless of how safe and effective it is. Compound that with everything he does to undermine confidence in such a vaccine, and you could have upwards, maybe a lot more than 1/3 not taking the vaccine, and then we never reach herd immunity, and so we can never return to normal. So this is a big problem.
And real quick, I'm so sorry. You're doing so much great work, Representative, but This headline, absolute robbery. Gilead announces $3,120 price tag for COVID drug developed with $70 million in taxpayer funds for this remdesivir. I mean, again, Trump administration not doing anything about that to control people profiting off of this that were given taxpayer money to develop this. I mean, this is just insane. And as you also tweeted, Americans without health insurance are in a scary, expensive situation. The ACA is not perfect, but it's reduced our uninsured rate, supported individuals with pre-existing conditions. Successful legislation like this should be expanded and improved, not invalidated. So those are the twin things, right? They're not controlling drug companies, whoever, trying to profit wildly off this horribly mismanaged pandemic, but take away people's health insurance on top of it.
It's bizarre, to say the least. But there's one thing that this pandemic has illustrated to us, and that is no individual should be allowed to go to not be tested for COVID because of expense, and then not be treated because of expense. Yeah. It's not only the right thing to do, but it also is the thing that keeps us safe, because even if one person fails to get tested and has it, or has it and is not treated, basically risks everyone else around them getting sick. And that's why it's so important that we make sure that the cost of these vaccines and then therapeutics and drugs are as low as possible. And then secondly, that everyone have access to health insurance.
Yeah.
And this whole episode illustrates these 2 points very, very strongly.
Representative, thanks for all the great work you do and for taking time for us. I'm going to pronounce your name correctly for the 4th time today, Representative Krishnamoorthi. Ha ha!
Hey, awesome.
Nailed it.
Nice
Nailed
job.
it. All right, talk to you
Call
again
me
soon.
Raja, though.
All right, Raja. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Okay.